Hello everybody out there, and welcome here to a special video that I'm going to do in anticipation for, well, one of my biggest anticipated films for a while now, and that is the return of King Kong to the big screen. It is going to be Kong Skull Island, and that is going to be released March 10th, 2017, which is Friday. That is tomorrow. I'm recording this video Thursday afternoon. Hopefully it can get up before Friday, but if it does, it's already done. I could not wait to get out to one of my local theaters and see this movie. I'm a huge King Kong fan, if anybody has tuned into my channel and knows me, and also a huge Godzilla fan as well. And this is going to be a look at my King Kong and Godzilla DVD and VHS collection. All the videos and all the DVDs and VHS that I have that have to do with King Kong and Godzilla, I'm going to show off in this video. It's not an update. It's just a look, at a, category in my collection, my King Kong and Godzilla sections. I've done some notes and some research on the films, and hopefully you might be able to learn a few things. The reason I'm going to do King Kong and Godzilla in anticipation for the Skull Island movie is because they have a thing going right now called the MonsterVerse, which is an American media franchise and shared fictional cinematic universe that is centered on a series of monster films featuring Godzilla and King Kong. It's distributed by Warner Brothers and produced by Legendary Entertainment in partnership with Toho for the Godzilla series. They have their first installment was Godzilla 2014, which we'll look at here in a little bit. But Kong Skull Island is the second installment in this MonsterVerse. And then they have slated for 2019 Godzilla King of the Monsters, or Godzilla 2. I'm guessing that's going to be the surname, though, is King of the Monsters. And then Godzilla versus King Kong in 2020. So what I'm thinking is, if Skull Island is the last movie or film depicting Kong until the Kong versus Godzilla movie in 2020, then it has to give us some kind of indication that there's going to be a fight with him and Godzilla. Now, I haven't heard any kind of spoilers or anything, and there may not be, but maybe he'll come in the 2019 King of the Monsters film, because, he is a giant movie monster, kaiju monster, as you like to call him. I am a big fan of the kaiju genre, in Japan. So, I have other movies pertaining which I might pull off here in a second and show them after I get through all the King Kong and Godzilla movies that I have. But I'm really looking forward to this whole MonsterVerse deal. I just recently kind of figured this out. I knew they were going to do this, but I didn't know that these were all going to be related in like a series of films. And it has nothing to do with the 2005 Peter Jackson King Kong. That's totally being scratched off, and it's just retold totally. But from what I see from Skull Island, it's not a retelling of the story. It's a totally new movie just involving King Kong. So that'll star Samuel L. Jackson and John Goodman and a pretty good cast. So it's looking really good. Jordan Vogt Roberts will be directing. And yes, it is a Legendary Pictures by way of Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers is getting the rights to do this with Legendary Pictures from Universal. Universal actually does own the rights to King Kong. So that's something they worked out. So it's really confusing on who owns all the rights. Like the original King Kongs are owned by Warner Brothers because Ted Turner bought them off RKO, who did them originally back in the day. And just speaking of that, let's get into my collection here. The first is going to be the Kong section, and then I'm going to go into Godzilla. So bear with me here. The first DVD that I have in my collection involving King Kong that I ever did pick up was the original 1933 classic in glorious black and white. It was King Kong, the original 1933 film, which was the first of the King Kong films. And yes, before Godzilla made his debut in 1954, there was already King Kong. So I think Godzilla drew a lot of inspiration off King Kong, and a lot of people don't mention King Kong without mentioning Godzilla, especially after the 1962 film King Kong versus Godzilla that they did. But this is one of my favorite movies of all time, I would have to say. And not only is it like a monster movie film or a horror film, it's also got a lot of touching moments, and it's just a good film all around. And yeah, it says greatest of all horror films, but it's not just a horror film. And, you know, the original King Kong was from an idea conceived by Edgar Wallace and Marion C. Cooper. And here's my other one. It's the 2-disc special edition. And the reason I got this 2-disc special edition is because I had some special features on here and everything already with the commentary there. Ray Harryhausen, Ken Ralston, and more. And I have to note that Willis O'Brien does a tremendous job on the stop-motion animation in the original King Kong. And that inspired the master himself, Ray Harryhausen, to start with his own stop-motion animation techniques. So Willis O'Brien considered the master, the first, because King Kong just an epic achievement in stop-motion animation. But you see there with Fay Wray, Robert Armstrong, Bruce Cabot. The first one had these special features, but then I was in a disc replay and I saw the 2-disc special edition, and this had a bonus disc that had I'm King Kong, the exploits of Marion C. Cooper profiles the original King Kong's guiding hand, and it had a really awesome 7-part documentary, RKO Production 601, The Making of Kong, Eighth Wonder of the World. And it had original Creation test footage with Ray Harryhausen. Creation was a movie that Ray Harryhausen was working on. I think, you know, they used some of the shots and that were supposedly written into that script that ended up in King Kong instead. And there you see the original 33 classic in glorious black and white, newly restored and digitally remastered. This actually came out like a year before the one that I got here. But yes, if you can, I recommend definitely picking up this one with the the second disc with the documentary, and the look at Marion C. Cooper. It's a really interesting second disc to have with the film, a good companion piece. But if you can only find this one, I definitely suggest getting it any way you can. I don't have it on VHS or anything, but any way you can, get out and find the original King Kong, because it is the best giant movie monster film of all time, in my opinion. And Willis O'Brien with just amazing stop motion on this. And then I was in a local Dollar General not too long ago. I did show all these off before too, so this is not an update, but I'm just showing off all the films that have to do with Kong and Godzilla, as I said. And this one had Son of Kong on it. This was the second effort with the name Kong in it, that has to do with one of the King Kong films. It was the second King Kong film. But the problem with this film is it's not the greatest achievement of all time like the first one was, because after the first film was made, they gave them 10 months to get Son of Kong out in the same exact year as the first one was released in 1933. So it was really rushed, but it was made by the same team that did the first one, Willis O'Brien on the stop motion, but it wasn't as good because he only had like 10 months, and they got into the production at like 9 months to go, and it just was a rushed effort. If they had some time to take, it would have been a lot better, but it's a lot better than what most people expect. And there you only have the theatrical trailer and subtitles on the second, but on the first one you had, you know, the same special features that came on my other two Kong films. I love that in the background there where he's crushing the plane and holding Fay Wray there. Go bananas over this Kong double feature. And there's a little write-up on it too there that I'm not going to get into right now. But yeah, RKO did a good job on both films, but they should have never had them release Son of Kong in the same year. But that's the other one that I have in the collection. And it's actually called Kong Collection, so in my Kong collection. And then the next one that I have, which I will be talking about here in a little bit more, you know, they're slated for 2020 to make another one, but in 1962, they did King Kong versus Godzilla. It was his return to the big screen for King Kong. They actually did a couple like Japanese lost films before this. Actually, in 1933, there was like a spoof film called Wasai King Kong that's lost now, which I really wish they would find the footage. Maybe one day they will. But this was, as you can see, just a guy in a monkey suit didn't have the charm of the original King Kong, but it was definitely the charm of the Godzilla series, as this was produced by Toho Films and was released in the United States by Universal, but released in Japan by Toho. And there was a lot of speculation that this had an alternate ending where Godzilla was seen swimming off instead of King Kong, but that was just all talk. It's King Kong in both efforts. What a film this is, though. Just, you gotta love it just because the two were brought together. But it does need a serious, remake. So I'm glad they're doing the 2020 MonsterVerse one with Legendary Pictures and Warner Brothers, and I hope it keeps on track here. You never know, things could change by then, as we are only in 2017, but I hope by then that we do get to see a serious effort at King Kong versus Godzilla. That one's going to be called Godzilla versus King Kong, though. They're going to switch them around from what I've heard. Everything that I have looked at has Godzilla first in the name. So they use King Kong on this one because obviously this was released by Universal, so maybe America was, they thought, more inclined to get King Kong. I don't know. But yeah, it didn't have any special features on it or anything, and I got this out of like a $5 bin at Walmart a long time back. But we'll get back into Godzilla here in a second, because that was where they came, crossed over. And that's why I'm making this video, is because they're going to cross over again, so we have to go over Godzilla. But here is my King Kong, the last of the films that I have in my King Kong collection. But I have to note that they did do King Kong Escapes in '67 in Japan under Toho and released by Universal in the US. I do not have it. And then Paramount did the remake, King Kong 1976. I had a chance to get that, and now I wish I would have had it because at the time I didn't know that there was only so few King Kong movies made. I thought there was more, like, Godzilla has 31 total. But as I become more of a fan of the kaiju and King Kong and Godzilla genres, I'm finding out more. And then there was King Kong Lives in 1986, directed by the same guy, but released by his independent company. And then you had King Kong 2005, which was a remake directed by Peter Jackson. And I thought it was done really well. King Kong looked great in this film, and this is just the single full screen edition, and there you see Universal had the rights on this one and released it in films, and it did pretty well, I think. And it after he did the Lord of the Rings trilogy, they gave him the go-ahead to do Kong, and I thought he did really well, and the CGI was pretty well done in this. Jack Black was an odd choice. Some of the casting choices were odd. I thought the leading lady, Naomi Watts, though, did good and did well in the Fay Wray part in this, though. There's a few parts in this, like the ice skating scene and stuff, which takes it a little bit over the top, but that wasn't in the actual original. But they tried to follow it very well, and I think they did a good effort on it. But you cannot top the original King Kong. And that's why I'm glad that Kong Skull Island is going to be a totally different movie, and we don't have to think about it being like a remake of King Kong, because how many times can you remake the movie? But it will not be related to this 2005 version either, as they are starting all over again, as Warner Brothers has the rights from Universal by way of Legendary Pictures. The other one on the Peter Jackson was, I like this one better because I love the cover. It was the deluxe extended edition of Peter Jackson's King Kong. And I was really happy when I grabbed this one because on the first one it had no special features, but this 3-disc collection has a special extended edition of the film, over 6 hours of special features. It had feature commentary with Peter Jackson. It had him recreating the Eighth Wonder, the making of King Kong. You had a lot of cool, and so much more, a lot of cool special features on this one. Original short film made by the cast of King Kong, Return to Skull Island, creating a mythical world of King Kong and Skull Island. There's a shot from the film. I just thought this case overall was cooler. I don't know. I do like the classic, he's on top of the Empire State Building there. King, and then on this one you have him just posed in his classic way, but it's awesome though because of the special features. So let's open this up and you can see 3 discs in there. It was made a lot better, bigger, DVD too, and I didn't have the widescreen edition too, so why not? But I thought that was a good effort, but did not top the 1933, which I don't think anybody ever will, just as the 1979 remake of King Kong didn't. So stop remaking them and do like they did now. And they're finally listening to somebody. Just do a totally different movie with him, and it doesn't always have to be trying to remake the film or reboot the film again. Like, how many times can you make Spider-Man? But anyway, getting back to Godzilla, I have several Godzilla films. The earliest one that I have, though, I do not have the original Godzilla, so I don't have as many films in the series as I do the King Kong. But I have to note that the first was 1954 by Toho, and the last one made was Shin Godzilla, or Godzilla Resurgence, in 2016, which I have yet to see. But if I ever see that on DVD or Blu-ray or something, I'm picking that up and checking it out. And that was done by Toho, by the way. As they came back in the picture, I guess when they saw like the 2014 Godzilla release, they were like, let's get back in the game as well, with this whole MonsterVerse thing going on. So they capitalized on it. But the earliest one that I have here is from 1965, and it's VHS, and it's Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. I'm not going to really... There's not really much to say. This is the weird one, though, where it's like in space. And I'm not going to go into deep detail on like these movies, but there's the write-up if you want to pause and check it out. But I'm just kind of showing off the ones that I do have. 31 Godzilla movies made, so it's hard to like talk about any kind of tie-ins to any of the movies here. But they didn't really, tie in other than like monsters would reappear. But there's Monster Zero, which was sent from space to destroy Godzilla. Pretty badass. Strange watch. And then from 1966, I have a note on this one. It was Godzilla versus the Sea Monster. And the thing about this is you see them standing on the desert there. It was originally slated to be a King Kong film. So they replaced King Kong with Godzilla, though, and pretty much left everything the same as far as the script went. As you see, he's on the island of Lecce. I guess that's how you say it, or Lecce, populated by an evil people bent on world conquest. But yes, this was an original King Kong slated film, and there you see 66 Toho. Well, good old Good Times put this out as well. But that goes along in the Kong collection because it was an original King Kong film with Godzilla in it instead, so it ties right in. But love the cover of that one too. So, interesting note, many people might not know. Then I have Godzilla vs. Gigan, which was released in 1972. And this is a funny cover because look how big Godzilla is compared to Gigan. Wouldn't Gigan be bigger than that? I just don't know. I've heard James Rolfe and the Cinemassacre talk about this cover before on... I think it was under the public domain cover art. Star Maker put this out. Good old Anchor Bay release. But yeah, Star Maker was the company that released the films of Godzilla in Japan. There's a nice shot from it. Godzilla vs. Gigan. And then I'm getting into my last ones, but it's the DVDs that I have. And I picked this one up at a Dollar General a few years back, or a year back or so. And it had a triple feature. It had Godzilla and Mothra, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, and then Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, giant all monsters. Let me say that again. Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, giant monsters all out attack. Got a little tongue twisted there. These movies, you had Godzilla and Mothra, The Battle for Earth. It was released in 1992. I do have the original Mothra, too, that I'll show you here in a second. 1991, Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. These were all Toho films. And then they had down there, 2001 was Godzilla, Mothra, and King Ghidorah, Giant Monsters All Out Attack. Said that a lot better this time. But you gotta love Mothra, too. Love the kaiju films. But this triple feature is really cool as I added into my King Kong collection. Some of the later films that they made, not from the 60s like the tapes that I have there. Of course, I have the King Kong Godzilla from 62. But also I have the... not so critically acclaimed, infamous Godzilla 98 from the creators of Independence Day, starring Matthew Broderick. Size does matter. I remember that being on everything back in the day, and this being like highly promoted. But look at Godzilla there. That's just not Godzilla. And in one of the, I think it was Destroy All Monsters, maybe. I might be wrong, but one of the later Godzilla movies, they had the Toho Godzilla destroy this one, which they dubbed Zilla. So they do not count this as actually Godzilla. And in this movie, he never breathes fire in this movie that I know of. They have that one part where it kind of looks like he does, but I think he just like, I don't know, man. It's just so strange. I remember watching this in the theaters with my mom and dad and my parents back in '98 too when it came out, because I was a Godzilla fan and Jurassic Park had been out, and we thought, wow, this is going to be cool. And it just was very weak. You had, of course, the baby Godzillas hatching in eggs, and I don't know, in Madison Square Garden. Okay, but the last one that I have in the Godzilla efforts, and this is the first one that they did leading up to Skull Island. This is Warner Brothers' Legendary Pictures effort, just Godzilla 2014, an epic showdown. And I thought it was really well done. Other than, it was a lot better than the '98 Godzilla. Not as good as the original Godzilla, but a lot better done than most of the Godzillas. Let me just say that. Really seriously done. If we would have seen more of the monster, that was one of my complaints, is we did not get to see Godzilla enough. And I did not like, I can't remember the actual creatures' names right off the bat that they call them right now. It's something real easy, but right off the top of my head, I just can't think of it. But I did not like those creatures that they had them fighting. You've seen those more than you did actually Godzilla. So it was kind of weird. But I thought, for overall, it was definitely better than the '98. The first half of the movie was better, and then the second half fell flat, in my opinion. But I'm definitely glad that I have it in the collection. But yes, now we are leading into Skull Island. So there is the Godzilla that you will be seeing fight King Kong sooner or later. So how badass is that? Peter Jackson's version is pretty close to what the new one looks like. So, and I heard that the new one, they've tried to really go back and model it after the original, Willis O'Brien animated King Kong from the original. So that's very cool and very nice to know. But yes, guys, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and watching this. Make sure you hit the subscribe if you liked what you saw. Give me a like down below. Drop a comment. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. Here's all my films together. Yeah, and I'm going to show off, these couple here before I end this real quick. And, they always have knockoffs. And Gamera came back as Takasuka. I can't ever say that guy's name, but he came back with some films and had Gamera starring in them. And man, if you think Godzilla films are bad, these are even worse. But you gotta love the kaiju efforts. But that's the guy's name. I can never say his name. Takasuka. I just can't say it. Toho is a lot easier to pronounce. But you also had, the first film, this with the monster Gappa, monster from a prehistoric planet from Japan as well. This one had the sci-fi creature classics with Mothra. It came from beneath the sea, and 20 Million Miles to Earth, which were both Ray Harryhausen classic films, and then the Giant Claw. So those all tie in, to this collection, in my opinion. But yeah, guys, as I said, subscribe, leave a comment down below if you're a fan of King Kong Godzilla. Let me know what you thought of the film, or what you think about the upcoming MonsterVerse series, or whatever. And yeah, guys, till next time, I want to thank everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed this, maybe learned a few things. And until next time, as always, peace out.